How's it going, everybody? Over the past several months, weeks, however long, we've been talking about the cultural civil war. A lot of this was about street battles, the far left versus the far right, Antifa versus Trump supporters, conservatives, however you want to frame it. But a really big portion of this cultural civil war is the idea of hate speech and free speech. The Supreme Court believes that hate speech is free speech, and a lot of people agree with that. So long as you're not creating a clear and imminent threat, you're allowed to say whatever you want to say. But part of this discussion is whether or not private companies and social media platforms are obligated to protect your speech. Some say, look, these are private companies. If they want to remove you, they can. In many instances, people have accused these platforms of wrongly banning people simply because of their opinions. A lot of conservatives feel like they're the ones who are being unfairly targeted by this. Now, the latest story is pretty damn interesting. It involves Gab.Ai. Now, Gab was set up kind of as an alternative social media platform that guarantees free speech. Twitter had been banning many conservatives, people who are considered alt-right, white nationalist, whatever. And so these users flocked to Gab, which is very similar to Twitter. Now, Gab promises free speech, but this is where it gets interesting. A post by Andrew Anglin, which is considered very offensive, was mocking Heather Heyer, the woman who was killed in Charlottesville, making fun of her for being fat and showing her being hit by a car. Now, according to Andrew Anglin, he received a notice from Andrew Torba, one of the founders of Gab, saying that the post violated their terms of service and must be removed. Naturally, there was an uproar. People were saying, hey man, this is free speech. How does this post in any way violate the terms of service? It should be allowed to stay. Andrew said he refused to take it down because he believes in free speech. Many people started criticizing Gab, saying they were selling out their values, that they made a ton of money promising free speech, and here they are trying to remove a post. But it doesn't end there, because Andrew Torba made a post on Medium explaining exactly what happened. First, he says that the post from Andrew Anglin did violate the terms of service because it was not marked as obscene. This picture, this post by Anglin, showed Heather Heyer being hit by the car and it mocked her. And the argument is that a person being hit by a car is an obscene post. And because it wasn't marked as such, it needed to be removed. But that really isn't the issue here. The real issue is that Gab received a notice from their domain registrar saying that they needed to, one, verify, update their information, but more importantly, that the post by Anglin violated the domain registrar's terms of service, and that Gab had to remove the post within 48 hours or there could be issues. Now, Torba noted that typically, this domain registrar gives people 15 days to comply with these orders to adhere to their terms of service, but in this instance was only giving Gab 48 hours. And so the decision had to be made. They could face sanctions, have their domain seized or booted off the platform, and we all know what happened with the Daily Stormer, as they, in one instance, actually had their domain technically seized by Google. Having your domain screwed with can effectively shut down your website. So Torba was faced with the decision of removing one post or having the entire site sanctioned. So it seems like his decision was take the post down, deal with this later. And in his post, he explains how they are currently trying to find a new domain registrar so they can avoid this problem. But the reality is, most of these companies have very similar terms of service, and most of these companies ban hate speech. If we really are in a war for the free and open internet, it's quite possible that the free and open internet has lost already. When you want to set up a website, you don't just snap your fingers, you don't just buy a website space. You've got server space, someone's got to register the domain, you've got DDoS protection. There's a lot of different services required for operating a website. Not only that, Google, if they don't like you, could choose to remove your site from search results, making discovery damn near impossible. And like I mentioned before, we've seen something similar with the Daily Stormer, and here we are seeing basically the same thing again. One of the arguments about whether or not Twitter, Facebook, and whoever should support free speech is that they're private companies, right? If you want to say your deplorable opinion, if you want to have your own space, go make your own space. Well, sure enough, that's what happened with a lot of these alternative social media platforms. But now, people are starting to realize it doesn't matter if one part of that free speech space is secure, because as long as they require services from other companies, they are at risk of being shut down by not adhering to the opinion corridor. Now let me tell you why this is so damn terrifying as this problem escalates. Sure, banning information is really, really bad. We've seen Google, YouTube sandboxing certain videos because they're deemed offensive, right? These videos don't even violate the terms of service, but you know what? It's wrongthink, so they're put in a little box, making it hard for them to be found. The real problem is not hiding the information. The real problem is eliminating certain personality types from the conversation. The people who would post these things that are offensive or mean-spirited, it's a kind of personality trait, right? These are people who are mean, offensive, snarky, they're trolls. They like to get a rise out of people. They're generally considered negative people. But guess what? You have a right to be mean and offensive. Homogenizing our culture isn't the right thing to do. We need a balance of emotion. But the people who are getting the boot are those who fit certain personality types. This is scary because we will create a homogeneous personality where people are scared of being offensive, they don't want to be offensive, they have no controversial or confrontational opinion, and they fall in line and agree with the system. That is really dangerous. Homogenization of our people, of our culture, of our ideas is going to drive us straight off a cliff. I made this analogy before, but typically I explain it like, imagine you're driving a car and you're going straight. If everybody agrees on the same thing, just keep driving straight, well, eventually you're going to fall off a cliff or slam into a wall. You need people who are more to the right, more to the left, who are going to help you steer or advocate for steering in different directions so that the car can navigate. And if we homogenize opinion and everyone is terrified to be controversial or offensive, then no one's going to criticize the bad ideas. No one's going to criticize the bad direction our culture, our country, our world is moving in. We understand that these posts on Gab and other alternative platforms are offensive, detestable. But the issue is, if we eliminate these offensive and controversial people from the conversation, will what's considered controversial and offensive just become narrower and narrower? If we get rid of this fat joke from Andrew Anglin, which is very deplorable, again, I can say it a million times, eventually something else will be considered offensive. And to many people on the far left, almost everything is offensive. And so the only result is a culture where we all point the finger at each other for being too offensive, and everyone gets in line and shuts up. Information around the world used to be a top-down system, where we had the big broadcast tower sending the message down to all of the people. And with the rise of the internet, something truly amazing happened. It started to become less of a tower and more of a pyramid, maybe a trapezoid, where several voices that were once on the bottom got lifted up and were able to express themselves. This is a really good thing. It created a space for alternative media and alternative opinion. New technologies, new ideas are able to flourish. New cultures, new subcultures, new hobbies are born out of this. There's now an opportunity for some of the weirdest cultures to get together and for people to feel like they're not alone anymore. But as we start to ban certain opinions, certain posts, certain jokes, people who are offensive, we're narrowing that back down to not just a broadcast tower, but more of like a single file line, where yes, anyone is allowed to speak, so long as it fits the narrative. Now, although it sounds like a good thing that we took down this broadcast tower, it seems like we're entering a world where it's no longer any kind of structure and it's just static. Random voices popping up at any one moment where people kind of agree with it. And what's happening is advertisers get scared and they say, you know what, we don't want to have anything to do with offensive or controversial ideas. We just want to sell a soft drink or macaroni and cheese. So they're going to do their best to stay away from certain things. This results in Google, YouTube saying, we've got to pull ads from certain channels, and then that ends up negatively impacting things like second-grade math videos and other family-friendly content that get caught in the crossfire. This results in creators losing their revenue. So then they get mad. It seems like we're just entering a space where everyone's going to be conflicted, having no idea what's going on, no idea what's truly offensive and what isn't, and everything starts to just roll in on itself. Perhaps blockchain technology is the solution. Maybe there's a way to create a decentralized, open social media platform that can't be targeted because of any one individual user. Minds.com is interesting because their goal is to be decentralized, and they kind of are. And so that means that big companies that might work with them have a decision to make. There's no one they can tell, hey, you've got to stop these kind of posts, you got to take this stuff down. So they can either get off the platform or just fall in line and realize that there are some things that our culture, that our society deems acceptable. And let's not forget the media's role in this. Part of the adpocalypse came from the Wall Street Journal writing about how YouTube was running ads against extremist, supremacist, and terrorist content, causing a huge freakout from advertisers who pulled out, even though ads appear on almost everything. And it's really hard to determine whether or not the ads are going to appear on something negative or positive. Even though YouTube has censored certain people, has censored many videos, there's still hundreds of thousands of videos that are almost identical in the ideas that they share that Google hasn't been able to take down. So it's possible these ideas will persist even through the censorship. and the only real risk is that the high-profile individuals who are making these posts are the one being targeted. To wrap this all back into the Gab.Ai story, there are many different companies involved in making a website, making a social media platform, or a video service work. And all of them hold similar values. It's kind of like a Mexican standoff. Everyone's staring at each other, trying to make sure that they're not stepping out of line and that their business succeeds. And everyone is scared of offending a large group of people who will then create a boycott or some kind of internet rage cycle. So they all say, you know what, hate speech is no good. And if anyone steps out of line, we got to back away out of fear of our business being risked. So everyone's got their finger on the trigger, and they don't know whether or not they're going to make the right move or the wrong move. No matter what you do, you're going to be offensive. As always, it is impossible to predict exactly where all of this will go. And that's why I tell you to comment below and let me know what you think. We'll have a conversation about it. If you like the video, click the like button. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Timcast. If you want to support my work, make sure you go to timcast.com/donate. Give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day at 4 p.m. Periodic live streams to take place. I try to do them as often as possible, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see you all next time.